On November 22nd, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was fatally domed in Texas. This tragic event shook the nation.
But what would have happened if he was not assassinated that fateful day?
With our combined efforts, we have created a time machine able to take us back to that day. Will we change his destiny of domation, thus creating undomation?
Will this turn out to be a domination?
Are all systems checked?
Got a blast!
No permanent markers were used in the making of this film.
Quick! We need to get to Dealey Plaza! Johnny boy, you about to get domed!
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn
This
out.
man was a true hero. He sacrificed his life for the greater good of the American people. R.I.P.
In the arms of the angel, fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you fear.
Due to the avoidance of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, economic and political advances were made throughout the country. However, social reform was stagnated due to the fact that Lyndon B. Johnson had not assumed the office of the presidency.
Wow, would you look at that? It says here that Congress has denied the passage of the Civil Rights Act as presented by John F. Kennedy. It looks as though legal discrimination against genders, sexes, and races will continue in the USA. It also says that a man by the name of Martin Luther King Jr. has just been arrested and sentenced to life in jail for his attempts to fight Congress's decision. Some believe that he was treated in such a harsh way due to his skin color. Interesting. It closes by saying that the movement against discrimination in America does not have a very strong following and will most likely be abandoned soon. Well, golly gee, it looks like President Kennedy's death largely fueled the civil rights movement. If he had lived, there would not have been as much motivation to fight against discrimination in America, because many activists took action as a result of President Kennedy's death. It's amazing how one man's life can affect history in such a big way. What do you think, Allie?
Kennedy went on to make space exploration of great importance by giving NASA a greater budget and even proposing a joint mission to the moon with the Soviet Union.
Breaking news. Following the first mission to the moon, President Kennedy has continued to support NASA. He has just gifted the National Aeronautics and Space Administration a grant for a large sum of money in order to continue making strides in space exploration. There are currently plans in the making for more space missions in the upcoming years, including an investigation of life on Mars. President Kennedy's support and generosity towards NASA will be influential in future space exploration. Thank you and have a good evening. This space mission was brought to you in part by President John F. Kennedy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off!
Kennedy decided to enter the war against North Vietnam in order to contain communism under the premise of the domino effect.
What has happened in the world today? News on Vietnam. President Diem of South Vietnam was overthrown and killed in a U.S.-backed military operation, which led to the United States entering the war. Kennedy previously told sources at CBS News that the war could be unwinnable, but he also told a source at NBC News that the fall of South Vietnam would lead to the fall of other communistic areas, a domino effect. Kennedy wishes to resolve Vietnam while removing American troops from the area, which he has spoken about today. Yesterday evening, North Vietnam boats fired on U.S. Navy destroyers. Congress authorized to send ground troops into Vietnam. Kennedy publicly announced his opposition to the sending of more troops into North Vietnam and is working on a diplomatic resolution for the withdrawal of 1,000 troops. The majority of Americans support the effort to contain communism and see Kennedy as weak. Will he send more troops or let South Vietnam collapse?
Hooray! Time for domino effect!
Communism. Breaking news! President Kennedy speaks on the containment plan in Vietnam after an unidentified number of troops were killed from an attack on American ships. You've seen it first on BBC.
In an interview, President Kennedy gives his opinions on war and the civil rights movement.
Mankind must put an end to war before war puts an end to mankind. If we cannot now end our differences, at least we can make the world a safe place for diversity.
A few years later, Kennedy decides to send more troops to Vietnam in order to contain the spread of communism.
Happy holidays from BBC. After years of Kennedy refusing to send more American troops and South Vietnam's deterioration and struggle to fight communism intensifies, Kennedy has decided to work with Congress to nearly triple the amount of troops to combat the spread of communism. Sources say Kennedy has too late realized the extent to which democracy is endangered by the affairs in Vietnam. Good night from BBC.
Due to the delay in the involvement in Vietnam, counterculture in the 1960s did not expand as quickly. This was due because the draft was not put in place, thus not affecting young people and college students. These people made up the majority of the counterculture in the 1960s that rebelled against the war, supported the civil rights movement, and opposed the nuclear family that was pushed upon them. John F. Kennedy would have received scrutiny due to his infidelity. He is rumored to have had many affairs with other women, the most famous of which is Marilyn Monroe. This scandal would have quickly gotten out of hand and spiraled out of control. Some even say it would have led to the impeachment of the president.
Happy New Year! We hope the start of 1976 is going well for you. Fortunately, around the world, it's not going well for everyone. Vietnam's neighboring countries have officially been taken over by communistic Vietnamese forces. Historians say this could have been avoided if the United States had been more forceful in Vietnam during President Kennedy's second term. Forces are currently being sent to abolish the spread of communism. You'll see it first on BBC News. Stay tuned. Johnson knew from previously working in Congress how to get bills passed, such as the Civil Rights Bill and the proposal for an income tax cut. Kennedy would have faced more opposition from Congress, therefore altering major events in American history that have brought us to the year 2017. Johnson knew from previously working in Congress how to get bills passed, such as the Civil Rights Bill and the proposal for an income tax cut. Kennedy would have faced more opposition from Congress, therefore altering major events in American history that have brought us to the year 2017. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.